some Twitch thought lying in the woods listening to caterpillars eat all the trees.
It's a caterpillar with long nails eating a pickle. Yeah,
Lore Boys here. You thought we were gone, but in reality, we were simply gestating inside our indestructible cocoons. I am your hive beast, Peter O'Donohue, and I am joined by...
your hype beast, James Miller. Whoa!
Help, it's Ethan. I wasn't able to distract my way out of my destructible cocoon.
Yeah, so apologies in advance for any audio issues that come up, because Ethan is still within a cocoon.
Does that happen?
I got it.
Oh, okay, good.
There's a latch. I just said
Are there are there weak caterpillars who just don't quite make it out? Like,
for sure.
Oh,
It's gotta be
Guaranteed.
a thing. Yeah.
oh man,
Nature's brutal, dude. Nature doesn't give a fuck.
Welcome to Entomology Boys, where we tell you that some bugs die.
oh, frick. That's like kind of their strategy, though, right? Is they just make a lot of themselves so they can just account. It's like, it's 75% of us will die, but that's fine.
Yeah. That's it. Well, that is why we started the show with 12 lore boys, right?
Yeah.
And then 25% of us lived.
Yes.
And we're
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are just stillborn, right? Like some lore boy eggs just never hatch. They just get left on the beach to get scavenged by, like ocean birds.
Yeah. Lore mother ate the runt, and
Yep.
Thanks everyone who keeps telling their friends about the show. I think we had 800,000 downloads this week, which is very cool. So
yeah.
Everyone. And thanks to everyone who continues to support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/theloreboys. I thought as a fun little treat for the regular listeners, we could play a game that we sometimes play on the bonus audio that you can get if you become a patron, which is I will open a new tab in Firefox, and it'll give me articles, just the headlines basically with a short blurb. So I have an article here that I want to play a game with you guys. This article is from The Guardian. The article title is Flapdoodler Roarback Yule Hole. Why Forgotten Words Need Rescuing from Obscurity.
Okay.
And I want you guys to try and tell... we're going to go through these words, and you guys can try and take a guess at what you think the words mean. So the first one is Flapdoodler. I can only find the definition for Flapdoodle, which is, I assume Flapdoodler is someone who creates Flapdoodle. It is a noun. You guys say flap.
Is it like the people who make the designs on the flaps on the back of trucks that say like cold beer, hot women?
Yeah. It's the guy who draws Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes peeing on Garfield.
Yeah,
right?
peeing on Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Got it.
Each one is unique, and they have to draw a lot of Justin Trudeau getting peed on. I'm not gonna lie.
Flap it sounds like something you'd say like this guy talks too much. He doodles his flap too much or something like that.
You pretty much got it. It's just it's nonsense.
Yeah,
okay. Damn.
The example,
because The Guardian is in the UK. It's UK based, so I thought it was going to be like it's probably just like a small singing bird or something like that.
Flapdoodles in the trees.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a cherry orchard bird, probably something like that.
The second one is Roarback. Roorback. Let's take a guess at what Roarback is. This one is also a noun. Is it
someone who, I don't know, like maybe some kind of like industrial worker would be?
Okay, yeah. Like he's been working his back off.
Or he's the Roarback. He manages some kind of textile machine. Well, now that the first one was like,
what's a
much less nonsensical than I had assumed.
It's a roar.
It's nothing. I don't fucking know.
Oh, okay.
I've never worked in a textile mill. Like maybe it's one of those things.
It's the guy, like, when you start those movies where the lion is the
MGM is the lion.
MG, okay, yeah. Where he goes, roar! It's the guy who's just behind the MGM sign who pokes it with the prod that makes it go. Because he's the roarback, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe they dub over the lion and he's doing the backing track for the roar. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
No, it is a defamatory falsehood published for political effect. Which is not so. But Yule hole, and that's like the Christmas Yule.
Yeah.
Hole.
That's a chimney?
Okay, that's a good guess. It's not a chimney though.
Because that's where Santa Claus comes from. But
From the Yule hole. No, that's not it.
Yule hole.
Damn. Because I can think of like the Yuletide and the Yule Lads, which we did an episode about, or like a Yule log.
Yep.
But what would is the Yule hole? Because the Yule log has like holes drilled into it where you put the candlesticks, right?
Oh, it's the
no
oven.
idea.
It's the oven because that's where the Yule log comes out of the Yule hole. No.
No, it's not. The Yule hole is an old term for the loosest notch on your belt, reserved for Christmas.
Oh, it's
feasting.
because when you overeat. That is a great one.
I like that one.
I'm bringing that one back. That's fantastic.
That's my Yule hole.
I got a bonus one for you guys. Just the Guardian article has a graphic and it has some like bonus words, and the only interesting one is Hogmadog, which is a large snowball made by This says Rollowing. I don't think that's right. This one is probably also unofficial because I can't find a dictionary entry for it, but I find a couple different places where it's referenced.
Okay.
A large snowball made by rolling a smaller one around on the snow, which is just like the only way you can make a big snowball.
It's a
Hogmadog.
bottom of a snowman.
Hogmadog. Yeah. Someone did that in the dog park actually, and all the dogs just pissed on it. So there's this big yellow ball of
there's a big piss-covered Hogmadog out in the dog park.
Piss-covered Hogmadog.
Yeah. Luckily, all the snow melted up here. We have no snow on December 11th, which is kind of crazy. But
a lot of ice though, because it got very wet for a few days there. Then everything fucking froze.
Yeah.
If you guys want to play that game with us, like every second week or so, maybe every third week these days, you guys can join the Patreon, patreon.com/theLoreBoys. We do that on the bonus audio, and you get some other perks as well. One of which is having your name called out.
The bonus, by the way, happens every week, not every 3 weeks. We just don't always play that game.
It's just
you always get the bonus.
We don't always play the game because sometimes there's just no good headlines. There's just no good content there, and then sometimes I forget.
It happens, because it's Ethan's Firefox pocket that we're using, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But today we welcome shiny new patron Walter Lopez, and shout out and a thank you to old patron Fatboy AP for either resubbing or upping his subscription to the second highest tier. Actually, so
is that Fat Man from Jersey?
Fatboy AP, I don't know.
We got a couple.
Honestly. That's the tech though, guys, is to just cancel your sub and then resub, and then we'll see it again and we'll forget if we've read your name before. So we'll end up
say that. Don't encourage that behavior.
People's credit card bills are just be fucking wild. It's just it's like we're gonna freeze your bank account because there's a suspicious amount of transactions. It's just like I just wanted to hear my name 4 times in a month.
Yeah,
on a podcast. Yeah. So yeah, welcome Walter. Maybe you'll request an episode one day. Today's final, for now, Gears of War episode, until Gear 6 comes out and kind of closes the loop there, wasn't exactly requested directly. It's been requested a bunch of times, but actually just a regular Discord user Risky Biscuits, reminded me that I never finished Gears of War, and it's an episode I very much like writing about. I like the Gears lore a lot. And they pointed out, like, more Gears. I was like, I've done Gears. Yeah, we're spamming emojis for Gears of War right now. I was like, I've done Gears. He was like,
spamming the Gears of War emoji.
Because in Discord now, they have a new feature where if we have an emote, you can spam it in the call, so it shows up over my face. The little dead emoji that we have. What was it? The hammers from
Hammers for Ivan.
Yeah. Hammers from Ivan. Yeah, I have that. I have that Locust getting his head caved in with a hammer falling out of the sky on a mug at work. It's great.
Nice, nice.
Where was I? Right. Reminded me that Pete, you never covered the new shit from Gears 4 and 5. You fucking love those games, and that's true. I do. Lads, guess familiarity check. Remind the people. If you played Gears, and maybe what do you remember from the previous 2 episodes? I do Gears of War like every 18 months. This is not like a regular series, so
version of a multi-parter.
Yeah, exactly. I'll fucking get to it.
Every bit of Gears that I've experienced, I've watched somebody else play it, so I'm not close enough to the series to get chainsawed, but maybe close enough to get shot at from far away. But,
okay.
Yeah.
You chainsaw somebody play it.
Yes. Yeah.
I played 1. Beat it, I think. Probably did. None of the other ones really. I maybe played like a bit of multiplayer at like a friend's house or something on the Xbox 360.
Cool.
Yeah. what do I remember from the other episodes? The Locust came from underground. From underground. Don't remember if they're aliens or not. Yeah, that's it.
I remember
they're not aliens.
And the coal train. That's what I remember.
Yeah, woo. Can't stop the coal train, baby.
Yeah. I remember there's a big weapon that's up in space that shoots like tungsten bars down to Earth.
No, this definitely happened the last time too. The Hammer of Dawn is a laser. It's just a cool. It's just a cool name. The tungsten bars were in Ace Combat.
It was a real suggestion to like the War Department too. Yeah. Like that almost happened in real life.
A lot of kinetic energy, no radiation.
A maniac was just like President Reagan. I got an idea, and Reagan was like, "It's a little too much for me, thanks."
And we ended up joking about that.
Just nukes, actually.
Yeah.
We
ended up joking about it. I saw a post recently about like the most bombed place, and it's like Laos was like bombed.
I saw the same post.
Yeah. And it's like
59 times a minute on average by the U.S. over 9 years. Yeah. On average, 59. It was like it was an insane amount of bombs dropped over 9 years. Yeah.
Jesus, I would have assumed it was in the Middle East just because of how long like wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were.
It seems like overkill, man. Like the amount of money it costs to drop a bomb a second on a country, like why even bother? But
yeah, so over
someone's getting real rich and that's the problem, right?
Over 270 million cluster bombs were dropped on Laos during the American Secret War, which was 9 years. So
that's not very secret of you, though. Eh? You think you'd be a little more covert than bomb
I think like James Bond spies and everything is like, we just bombed the fuck out of them. We bombed them so bad nobody could get out of the country to tell anybody else. That's how we kept the secret.
Yeah, because I was like, there's a war in Vietnam, and then there's Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, and that's like a similar area. I was like, Laos? What the fuck? Okay, so they had a secret bombing campaign.
Yeah, and they did a lot of bombs.
Love the government. Great job.
So it was 82. That math comes out to 82,191 a day.
Holy shit! I don't do anything that many times a day. Like maybe breathe. No, probably not even breathe.
Probably not even blink.
No.
We were wrong. It was way more than 1 a minute. It's 3,400 a fucking hour. So
wow.
Divide that by 60.
Yeah.
57 a minute. Actually, that's pretty close.
That's a lot.
Okay. Yeah. No. Hey, it's under 1 a second. Thank God. Right. Yeah. Give a little reprieve there.
Yeah.
My God. Anyway, I've raved about Gears 4 and 5 a lot, and a lot of people I talk to are hesitant to pick them up. And like, I totally understand this. Like my conversations that I have with like friends of mine who we all played Gears together on 360. It was like Halo and Gears were big among my friends group, right? We're all boys with 360s, so like the two big like shooter franchises were obviously like very important to all of us.
But Game Pass, you can probably play them all for free now, right?
Weirdly enough, there's only 3 Gears of War games on Game Pass. 1, 4, and 5. 2 and 3 nowhere to be found.
2 and 3 missing is weird.
Yeah, it's all owned by Microsoft, right? Like they own the IP. Yeah, who the fuck knows? It's not like they're on the Epic Game Store, the people who made them, right? Yeah. It's just like, never came to PC. Very, very bizarre. But anyway, yeah, like this is just a little aside. I wanted to make a point about like next generation media, basically, because I understand why people might not want to play Gears 4 and 5. It's like a legacy IP being made at like a Microsoft plantation that is just named after the product they're making. Like the people making it now is Coalition Studios. And COG is the Coalition of Ordered Governments, which we have an episode about. Like they just named it after product. And like people have a right to be suspicious about like legacy media because like think about a lot of the stuff Disney makes or like fucking Marvel after Endgame or a lot of the new Star Wars, and that's all Disney, right? But like just you would assume that like the soulless product that comes out of like a corporation named after the product would not be good. And like post Epic Games Gears on the surface has a lot of like the hallmarks of like one of those like new media properties, like just written by like childless, self-hating millennials living in like giant New York apartments. Like all the characters are a lot younger. In Gears 5, the majority of the game you play as a female protagonist now. Took the toys away from the boys. all the old legacy characters are like old and
shaking his head.
the woke liberal. I was shaking my head because I literally saw on Reddit this morning the YouTube comments under the Hades 2 trailer where it's like, oh, what, like we're playing as a girl now? There wasn't enough Greek male gods for you to choose from. Just like
who is the new character?
Extremely. I haven't actually watched the trailer, so okay. I'm not sure, but I'm excited about it. But I probably
why not
watch
Goddess of War, or no, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's stupid. People just get mad about the wrong things on the internet, and then the conversation doesn't it doesn't even become about
extremely gamer moments, right?
Is this a good game? It's like, does this align with my weird fucking agenda? But anyways,
yeah, and also like kind of the interesting thing that people could be suspicious. Like, obviously, I don't side with any of that. I love Gears, and I don't think Gears had this controversy. Again, like I'm not on a lot of those websites, so I don't know if like all the weird pilled guys were mad about playing as Kate in Gears 5. Like, couldn't fucking tell you.
Probably.
I'd assume though. Yeah,
they're gamers for sure.
Yeah,
for sure
I mean, it's just the controversy didn't seem to have any legs because it just kind of came and went. But also, like another reason why some people might be suspicious to play Gears 4 and 5 is because look at how Halo turned out. Look at how
I've been biting my tongue this entire time, but that's what I was just thinking. I was like, Halo 5. Like that's why I would be apprehensive too.
Yeah, exactly. It's just Microsoft's like unigame studio system. Like they fumbled Halo. They fumbled the big one. And it's just like, and then Gears is just like kind of comes out under the radar like every 4 or 5 years. No one really talks about it after it's gone. It's just like, well.
I wanted to like Halo too. I played so much of the multiplayer for a while, and it just got so
of
dry,
Infinite, right?
Yeah, of Infinite, yeah. And it was, they just didn't update it enough. Like all this shit was broken. If you couldn't play with someone who wasn't near your like server or whatever. So like, let's say I wanted to play with my friends in Texas, the game would become unplayable for one of us because it would round to the nearest like server. And even on the competitive level, people were doing things with their files on the computer to make sure, like, delete the ability to connect to any other server that's even close to mine, other than the one that's like right near me. So making a multiplayer experience that's just unplayable with people across the world, like, how do you do that in what is like such a strong multiplayer game in the past, you know? Like,
the fact I fucked up Halo multiplayer, like the reason I stopped playing, because I played Infinite as well, and it was nostalgic, and on PC it's way tighter because like I've always been bad with controllers.
Yeah,
like you couldn't choose your fucking game mode, and I ended up with Griffball 3 matches in a row, which is awful. And I was like, I'm never fucking playing this again. And
plus, they give you targeted missions too. Like you have to get this objective on this type of game map, but then don't give you the ability to choose.
But then can't queue that game.
Yeah. Like I want to play Team Slayer or SWAT. That's it. No King of the Hill, no CTF maybe, but like that's it. And it was just like, no, Pete, you can't do that because nobody's ever heard of Halo before, and we're making the 7th one.
There were still fun moments. Like when I did play the game for a few weeks.
We played together, but it was good fun.
I remember coming around the corner on SWAT and just going tack, 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 tack with the battle rifle and getting 4 headshots in a row. And I was like, okay, I've peaked. I'll never make a play like that again. So I can stop now.
So like a lot of other kind of like new media based on old stuff, the new characters, but again, it's good. Now, one of the reasons I think Gears is good is because Rod Ferguson was the game director on Gears 4 and 5, and he worked at Epic Games on Gears 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So the guy in charge knew what the fuck he was doing, and the layout for Gears of War 4 was already done by Epic when they finished Gears 3. So they knew where the story was going to go. So obviously, like notoriously, Disney didn't plan the new Star Wars trilogy. So that's why it was just like 2 completely different movies and then a third one that tries to retcon everything. And it's just like, great. All right. Nice job, guys. Just like, like I wish I had that kind of money to waste. But a lot of stuff like this, like a lot of the new characters are generally very rude and dismissive to the legacy characters in a lot of new media, right? Yeah. Like, it's very much like out with the old, in with the new. Yeah. And like a big part of a lot of these new characters is just like disrespecting, mistreating, or just again, just being really cruel to the old characters that people love. Like, the reason people are here is to see this. Like, again, like, that was one of the problems I had with Rings of Power, is how fucking mean everyone is to each other.
Yeah. And I mean, Star Wars 2, like, the first of the sequel trilogies, like, spoilers, Han Solo dies and he's, like, killed by his son, but it's just, like... And I mean, they do it, like, for a shock, too, but they never really gave Ben, like... They never show his motivation on screen, first of all. It's like, it all happens off screen, like, decades ago. And then you're like, okay, like, I guess he's a Sith and he's his son. And then they really build it up like, what is the quote? I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And then he kills his father or whatever. And it's just like, this was all so jumbled and like for no reason other than to have the shock value of you being mean to, as to put it in Peter's words, mean to Han Solo, right?
Does Han Solo say "I am your father" to him, or that's not a reveal, right?
No. He's not a reveal in that moment.
No,
it was a reveal at some point in the story where it was like, oh, he's Han Solo's and Leia's son.
That is a good point, though, Jamie, because Rings of Power, a lot of the dialogue is just quotes from the Peter Jackson movies. Like a third of those scripts is quoting a different adaptation. I was like,
every third line is meat's back on the menu. It's so like
it's so weird.
Yeah. It's like no, Celebrimbor, he is the Lord of the Rings.
It's like Celebrimbor.
Oh, my liege, you're here. The return of the king.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, to be fair, Gandalf does say the return of the king to Denethor in the third film. Like the original, the Jackson films do have the title in the dialogue.
Yeah.
Right?
What are those two pointy things in the distance? What, you mean the two towers?
Those two towers?
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to fight in the Star Wars.
Yeah. Wow, the Force really has awakened this time. Which I guess back to Gears. The Gears of War is a pun on the government being called the COG. Like, I think we made that point in some of the older ones. They really did work backwards. Was like, we just want to call... I don't know if they wanted to call the government the COG, or they needed a Gears pun after they had called the game Gears of War. Because Gears of War doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's like Resident Evil.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything in so far as, like, if you dissect any, like, phrase enough. But, like...
Die hard.
Being like drivers of things, like you'd be like, oh, it's the things that are driving the war, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
War boys.
Yeah. I think our title's very good, actually. I had to work backwards from the point that we're all boys and think up something like that. I didn't have much to But yeah, and then so just to kind of wrap up this whole like new media tirade I wanted to go on.
Sure.
The new characters
have
get
to back into your rocker on the porch.
Yeah, and then I'll sit down and have some lemonade.
With a tall glass of lemonade.
Yeah. The new characters like fail constantly and learn from the old cast. Like Baird, Marcus, the Coltrane. Whoop, whoop, right? They're all still in the game. They're old, they're tired, they're kind of beaten down, but they pass on their knowledge to the new generation. They're not just replaced. And I think it's really good that the people working on the game cared about it. Sadly, Rod Ferguson has left. He left in 2020 to join Blizzard, allegedly, just because there wasn't enough breast milk to steal at the Coalition.
Okay.
But Rod Ferguson is currently working on Diablo, meaning 4 might whip ass. Because I trust him. He seems to be pretty good.
The game looks good, but again, the problem is they're gonna try and squeeze money out of us because that's just capitalism just keeps ruining the games. Like you have to show to shareholders that you're gonna turn over this much to whatever. It's not just game sales anymore. It's like, what's the longevity, right? Because how long ago did Diablo 3 come out? It was like 2012, like 10.
I was at EB Games, so it was definitely like 2011 or 2012.
Like, so we got to feed off this milker for 10 years, right? Because we can't do it in the office anymore. So, it's
just old man Ethan now sitting on his rocker on the porch watching Jamie railing against capitalism, wiping a tear from his eye.
Ethan's like catatonic. He's just like one tear goes down. He's like on his respirator. Like all three of us now are just like just sitting on some stoop somewhere yelling about shit.
I'm mad because I care, because I like the old games. I still play Classic WoW. I still play Diablo 2. I like
the games. I like the IPs. And like Overwatch 2 being, maybe the most flagrant display in a good while. Of
Some
just
people
being
like it,
I like the games are good. Like they're good designers. Again, it's like good storytelling. It is just this, there is this like sinister quality to it in a sense, and I mean it's all games. Like we pick on Blizzard a lot because they're so big, but and it's not all games, but like a lot of major studios and just industry in general, right? Like Jamie was saying against capitalism, and we were talking about Disney. Like it's just it's stock shareholders, right? It's pleasing shareholders and just always making a bigger buck.
And Game Awards just happened. Look who won. One of the only games that doesn't have microtransactions in them. Elden Ring.
Not even any DLC announced. Like Elden Ring's just out and that's it.
They give us free DLC. That's all they've given us. They gave us a PvP update this week.
I mean, you can get away with it when you're, I guess, as loved as FromSoft, and I mean, maybe there's some like cultural difference there with being a Japanese company. Heck, are we going to talk about Gears of War though?
We are. Yeah, I was just about to say. I mean. It was an interesting thing I wanted to bring up for the listeners anyway, is like the old and the new things, and why maybe people are way more nostalgic now, because maybe new stuff is just fucking worse, actually. But anyway, speaking of new stuff, and maybe you just wanted to avoid the old stuff, if you don't want to listen to our previous 2 Gears episodes, the only thing you really need to know at this point is that a man named Dr. Niles Sampson created the Locust, the primary enemies of the first games, by combining the DNA of a young girl named Myrrah with the DNA of sires. And sires were people who were formerly sick with rust lung, combined with the DNA of the species native to the Hollow, which is the underground network of caves on the planet Sarah, where the games take place. Sarah is not a colony. It's not even set in the future. It's just Earth in this universe. Completely separate universe with no relation to our own whatsoever.
What are they
Sarah
mining?
Is the homeworld of humanity.
What are they mining again that makes them get rust lung?
Emulsion.
So
rust lung is like black lung. It is miners and their families, after extended exposure to emulsion, the main fuel source that they fight wars over on Sarah. It gives you rust lung, and the doctor was trying to cure it because he was running out of labor at some point, where it's like, man, all these people are getting sick, and then they're getting their fucking kids sick. And it was called rust lung because the exposure to emulsion gives you like brown phlegm, basically.
Brown phlegm.
Myrrah, however, was born with an immunity to rust lung, so the doctors figured she'd be good at like helping them find a cure. But we have a COG episode, we have a Locust episode where there's a lot more details about that.
So what they did is they just put Myrrah, like they take Myrrah's flesh and they use them as like masks, right? So it just like gets rid of all the rust lung on the way in, or
like a COVID mask made of like children's skin.
Yeah, or they put like a big ventilation in the mine and just like her open mouth on the other side of the ventilation, so she could like catch all the rust lung, and since she's immune to it.
You have to like change the filter, put in a different kindergartner to like filter out all the rust.
A different set of children's lungs in as the filter.
Once a month, you got to rotate it.
Yeah.
The most relevant thing that we talked about last time was the emulsion countermeasure weapon. This was designed by Adam Phoenix, the father of the main character for the first trilogy, Marcus. Yep. This was actually at the request of Queen Myrrah, because she ends up becoming Queen of the Locust. Since the Locust that got saturated in emulsion started to go crazy and become lambent, which is because emulsion's alive. It's like some kind of parasitic entity as well. And again, we talked about that in the last one. So emulsion, to kind of protect itself, starts infecting the Locust and making them lambent. But because it's also a fuel source, the lambent horde was also explosive. So they were really hard to fight against. So Queen Myrrah was just like, listen, humanity, you guys created me. I really need some help because I got some bad neighbors and I need this taken care of. And also, if you don't do it within my time limit, I'm going to attack the surface. Anyway,
what does it mean to be lambent? It
means like glowing.
Yeah, because they glow yellow.
Oh, okay. It sounded like one of those words like Yule hole.
Yeah. It means you're a third place finisher on season 8 of American Idol.
Oh.
Adam Lambent.
Are those still going on? They must be.
What a stretch. Yeah. And I saw Simon Cowell in a Vanity Fair video on YouTube recently, or like the Google autofill quiz that they do with celebrities. Right. Yeah. Homeboy looks fucking bad. I don't know how, like, that rich man, he got some scuffed plastic surgery. He's looking rough.
Well, yeah, body dysmorphia, I feel like hits some people a lot harder than others, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You make a career out of being negative at things, too. Like, I feel like that must have an effect on something, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, then you must, like, if your whole shtick for your entire career was criticizing people, like, you got to be so self-conscious about ever, like, getting ugly or growing old, right? Like, like how that karma is going to come back to you. Like,
yeah, more like Simon Scowl now with that face.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he's got any muscles left in his face. Actually, he looks like he's got doll eyes. It's very weird. So anyway, the countermeasure weapon worked on the Lambent as well as on Emulsion. So Emulsion's all gone. And the Locust, which also kind of had some emulsion in their DNA because they had been engineered that way, were affected by it. But since they were created by Dr. Sampson to be resilient, they ended up kind of crystallizing and getting encased in these nearly indestructible cocoons. And they're covered in these yellow emulsion crystals. So the emulsion kind of left their bodies and poked out and then hardened into these like insanely tough crystals, basically, on the outside.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So this is another good thing for Ethan, the way that Gears is written, because on our last Elder Scrolls episode, which is a thing I firmly stand by, is that the timeline between events cannot be too long. So thankfully, the time between Gears 3 and 4 is 25 years.
Okay.
That's it. So humanity's government, called the Coalition of Ordered Governments, or the COG, began to rebuild, and they did actually a pretty good job, all things considered. Now that they had their resource war, which was the Pendulum Wars, which we talk about in the first episode, and then they had their war with the Locust and the Lambent, and they were like, okay, maybe we should cooperate just a bit. Mm-hmm. As much as a fascist government can cooperate with anybody, we're gonna do it.
It's time for Gears of Peace. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The cucked libs gave us a female protagonist that took out the war in Gears 5.
Smile on your brother, everybody get together, gonna love one another right now.
So since the Locust cocoons, so the Lambent and Emulsion basically dissolved. They were pretty easy to sweep away. They just like kind of dried out and got all desiccated. But the Locust corpses inside their cocoons, since they were so hard to break down, the cocoons were just collected and dumped into improvised mass graves. So, facilities that were never completed. There's like a big
throw them into the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Like
basically,
ocean will take care of them.
Yeah. Honestly, had they dumped the corpses in the ocean, we probably would not have a Gears 4 and 5 because it would have solved the problem.
Yeah, they would have been eaten by sharks.
Or just drowned when they hatched out of their cocoons inevitably. Because dumping them in mine shafts or in like there's like vaults that were created in some place, like underground bases and shit like that. It's just like, if we're not going to use it, fill it with monster bodies, dude, because we don't fucking need it.
It's like the linguistics problem. Like, how do you store nuclear waste in an ethical way that if somebody digs it up in 10,000 years when all languages change, how do you mark the storage place so that person can know that it's dangerous? But it's the same thing, just with like ghoulish bodies of monsters.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least it's only been 25 years. So like, again, the people who participated in the disposal of the Locust cocoons still alive. And they were just Marcus does a lot of like between game exposition. Like the lore dumps are pretty well integrated when he's like on your squad and telling his son and Kate like, I knew about this mine because I work for the government and it was a Locust disposal site. And I wonder why it's full of monsters all of a sudden.
Don't monster open inside.
Speaking of that thing you said, is like, how do you communicate to someone in 10,000 years when language has changed? Didn't we send a probe out into space? Or like maybe onto the moon? Or it shows that we work in like base 10 math through symbols. It shows
what our anatomy looks like. It's on a golden record.
A golden disc.
Which I think you can play. Or you can like read the audio files from.
If you play it backwards, it plays Lore Boys.
Yeah. Carl Sagan was fucking loved our show.
Yeah.
And it's sad that he's passed away.
Yeah.
We got him inspired to do science, actually.
Yeah.
He told us once that it was the Lore Boys that got him into science.
Yeah, he has that really...
Fake science is the best science was his catchphrase.
Yeah. He has that really inspiring monologue about 3 pale boys or something like that.
Yeah. Pale blue boys. A pale boy dot would be the speech there. Voyager left the solar system a couple years ago. I think it turned around and took a picture of the sun, and it's just like another point of light among millions of points of light. It's really, really cool.
Cool.
Yeah. There's a good documentary about that. It might not be on Netflix anymore. I don't know what their rotation's like, but there's a really good documentary about making the Voyager. I love the one aside there where like journalists found it hard to report on because they launched Voyager 2 first, and all these like dullards in the newsroom were just like, "Why'd you do that?"
It's a fair question.
I know, exactly. I think it's because of the way they launched them. Voyager 2 was eventually overtaken by Voyager 1, if I recall correctly. But so they had to launch them at different times just because of like the way gravity and space fucking works, right? So the COG is doing pretty good at the cleanup, good at the rebuild. Even in the face of massive storms called wind flares, humanity managed to reindustrialize and even convert some of the COG army into robots called DBs, which is DB. It's short for Damon Baird, who is one of the squaddies from the original trilogy, and now just like a very successful military scientist. And he's, broadly speaking, your guy on the radio. He gives you a lot of the mission briefings and whatnot.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And he hijacks a plane with a suitcase full of money and then parachutes out, and people are looking for him.
Correct.
I don't get the reference.
Yeah. Oh. DB Cooper.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they made a lot of machines to fight in the military is because she's first minister by Gears 4 and 5, but originally, what's her name? Mina, I think it's like either Myrrah or Mina Jin, was the Minister of Procreation, which is a very weird title for someone. And it was basically just to encourage people to get pregnant, to repopulate the city. Gotcha. So they made machines so people didn't have to risk getting hurt on the job or fight anymore. So they made DBs, the robots, to replace people so that people could, if you're listening to Lore Boys on a forklift, you ain't fucking. So they put a robot on that forklift so that you could get some tail. Basically,
you get some tang.
I know lots of people who once they had to stay home from work, they had a baby. Ethan's one of them. They told him to stay working from home, and I guess all he did was just try and get his wife pregnant.
All this free time, yeah. All the free time.
Quebec's minister or I guess Ontario's minister of procreation. Really,
right. Yeah. I would wake up in the morning. I would grab a coffee, have some eggs, some veggie bacon, making a little smiley face, I'd read the newspaper. Then I'd look over at my wife and I'd say, "What's that for the morning commute, huh?"
I hope that's actually happened at least once. Fucking great. So kind of like in Titanfall 2, another absolute goat of a video game, some of the new COG cities kind of build themselves. There's like that one level in Titanfall where you're like in a suburbia factory, and kind of like as you go through the level, there's like a town being built around you. Cool. And again, there's DBs and then giant other mechs, the construction mechs I didn't look up the names of, that are all kind of repairing everything and putting everything back together. And all of the new COG cities have these gigantic rotating mechanical like ring walls around them to protect people from the wind flares. By Gears 5, we still don't know what causes wind flares, but multiple characters theorize that it probably has something to do with sinking Jacinto Plateau into the ocean to flood the Locust Hollow. So like lowering sea level and changing the shape of one of the continents would definitely affect the climate, but like at present, the COG has not admitted where climate change comes from. Imagine that. And it certainly wasn't sinking chunk of the continent into the ocean.
No.
Yeah.
Couldn't be.
Before the Locust War, the COG was always, like I said, a little bit fascist. Then they got into a war, and now they're very fascist again. The First Minister is really, really in charge of people's lives. And now that there aren't as many soldiers, they do use DBs to enact curfews every once in a while. Okay. So you got to be home from work and fucking by 8:30, or else the DBs are going to give you a ticket, basically.
Yeah. The San Francisco police union lobbying to let their robots murder or whatever, right? Was the
exactly.
use lethal force.
Yeah, San Francisco Councilwoman Mina Jin is 100% in favor of that one there.
Yeah. I want to let the murder bots kill again.
She got her way in this one, at least. Maybe honestly, Gears 5 is just a window into the future of San Francisco. Some people, God bless them, are not into this whole robot enforced curfew thing. Some people don't want to live in San Francisco. Fucking, to their credit, I think they're right. These people live outside of COG cities in much more rural communities. These people are just casually called outsiders. Sometimes they call themselves outsiders. And outsiders, though, sadly, sometimes they do have to raid COG cities while they're still under construction, because a lot of the stuff they need still requires fuel and batteries. So some of them have like wind farms set up, but as far as like backup generators or actually storing the energy that the windmills generate, you need to steal that shit from the COG. So there is a little bit of friction. The beginning of Gears 4, admittedly, I know I said the game's fantastic. The beginning's a little bit boring. You do spend a lot of time stealing batteries and shooting robots for the first like 2-3 hours of that game before the main enemies actually show up. Because you start playing as JD Phoenix, who is Marcus's son from the first 3 games. And he was just like, obviously his dad's a military man. So, and his mom, Anya Stroud, was first minister at one point before she died. And he was just like, yeah, I'm going to rebel against my parents who are both feds. So now I'm like a hippie living in the woods, stealing batteries from the government, basically. Yeah.
Oh, wind farm seems good, though, because they have all those wind flares, right? You can just like...
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes they're a little intense. I don't know if you've ever seen that wild video of that windmill destroying itself. Yeah. There's a lot of that. The wind flares are pretty crazy. I may have mentioned on the last episode what.
Yeah, to pay attention. Like if you're making toast or something and a wind flare goes off, like just be ready to pop it because it could cook your toast in like a second and a half. Yeah, like a wind flare.
Melt your toaster.
Yeah.
Toaster's just a pile of slag with 2 pieces of cooked bread sticking out.
So meanwhile, unbeknownst to the surface dwellers, these mass locust graves were changing into something else. Some of the cocoons had begun to hatch, and the graves were being changed into hives. Rumors kind of started to spread in outsider camps that monsters had been abducting people. Obviously, with the giant mechanical walls and all the robot guards, at this time, there were no raids on COG settlements.
Okay.
Because the new enemies, or the newly hatched locusts, or re-emerged locusts from their cocoons, did not have the resources at this time to launch a full-scale assault on a armored city, basically.
Fair. Yeah.
So as it happens, part of Queen Myrrah's consciousness was still kind of alive on the Locust hive mind network. And as the Locust began to hatch, they started to create new monsters. Again, like the Locust in the first 3 games had very much like taken the indigenous life of the Hollow underground and modified them into war machines. So there's a lot of like giant spiders with guns on them and a dinosaur with guns on it. Or like these armored worms that are basically bulletproof. They can be used as cover. Like the Locust very much used every part of the buffalo down in the Hollow, basically. Assuming the part of the buffalo could have cannons mounted on it, and otherwise it's all fucking useless.
Cannon-mounted buffaloes. Yeah. A jet booster sticking out of its ass.
Yeah, that's for whenever they get all like corralled off the cliff. They can still survive.
Yeah.
The ones with the jet
boosters take off.
Jet booster to take off.
Yeah. Natural selection. The ones with the jet boosters in their asses survived.
Yeah. So. Guacho sitting on the back of a horse with these wide eyes, watching these fucking jet-powered bison take off.
And then turn around and start firing cannons. Yeah.
Fucking, they turn to the side, broadsides like pop out of the side of the buffalo.
The doors flip up on the side.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. So the reemerged Locusts now kind of start doing this as well. They start rebuilding their army by creating new monsters that'll help them start to rebuild. But we're going to learn more about that after the break. Welcome back, everybody. So, one of the most important and most common new creations that the Locust made in their new hives, in their mass graves, was something called the Snatcher, which is a very silly casual name for, if you guys want to open up the first spoiler image and see what the Snatcher looks like.
There was spoiler images even.
Describe it to the audience. Well, I had to recap a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of setup before we get to the new baddies.
Oh my god, they stole my idea for laser beams made out of worms coming out of this guy's mouth. So it's like a quadrupedal creature with like the classic like insect like pointed it's a cowboy boot without the foot part. It's just like comes to a point at the end.
I didn't notice that. The joint does look like a cowboy boot. You're right.
on his 4 feet. He's got the plated bio armor. Yeah, chitin, if you will.
Yes.
Thank you, James. 4 glowing red eyes, or I mean, maybe 2 glowing red eyes just on one side of his face, but we're seeing the silhouette, so we can't see the other side of his face. He's got teeth mouth with razor sharp teeth, and 3 worms for tongues.
He's got a very soft pink belly. It looks like a very weak.
He's got a single testicle. He's got a single testicle scrotum as a belly.
I don't know.
But yeah, definitely a video game
testicle.
weak point. That's his lambent. That's his lambescence, I guess.
Is that a word?
The lambescence is opposite to the chitin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sagan. Yeah, so
excerpt from Paleboy.
What's funny is one of the things about one of the trivias on the wiki page for this thing, for the Snatcher, is like, due to the square cube law, this animal could not exist because of its size. Its pointed feet would just sink into the ground.
That's something I learned about. That's why animals aren't so big, because the square you can. Moving stuff up as a square isn't so much, but when you move it up cube-like, it's exponentially bigger.
It's a hell of a lot more volume.
Yeah. Jamie's so big, he doesn't have enough room for him in his apartment with his microphone. Apparently.
Yeah. This new
Jamie's
setup.
Pointed toes means he sinks into his desk.
Yeah. I have 2 holes.
Why I can only assume that's why whales don't have pointed feet.
Yeah, because they would just sink.
There you guys go. Look, there's holes in the floor right there next to me.
Jamie's apartment looked like a Shia LaBeouf picture.
My pointed feet.
So the big, dumb, glowing video game weak point on the front of the Snatcher is actually like this pouch that can open up and a bunch of tentacles come out of it. Because what this thing is made to do is it is made to kidnap people, snatches them up.
Where's he put them?
Hide your wife, hide your kid.
In the pouch, the big.
The testicle.
Chest. The nut opens up, and then it's got tentacles on the inside.
Climb into my nut.
It's got floppy tentacle lasers that poke out of it, and it picks people up and transports them back to a swarm hive. The new creations by the Locust are now called the Swarm. It's not the Locust Swarm anymore. It's the Locust they make the Swarm, opposed to being the Locust Horde. So it's all... They're struggling with words for...
They always should have been called Swarm, though. It never should have been called a Horde, right?
Oh, I know.
It's a swarm of locusts, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were working hard. Like, my buddy Kyle can do like a serviceable impression of Marcus Phoenix, and I can't. But he's always just like he was one of the guys who was skeptical of playing Gears 4 because he saw the plot was just like everybody is just like, it's not the Locust, and then just like, it's the Locust, which is absolutely the plot of Gears 4. It's just like they look the same.
Who else would it be? Yeah,
I know.
It's just the Locust with one of the the classic fake glasses with the nose and mustache on.
Of course,
definitely not the. No, never seen a Locust with a mustache before, so it can't be them.
Yeah. So while you're inside the Snatcher, the person is then wrapped up into a snug and fleshy little cocoon pod and then deposited somewhere on the wall, on the floor, hanging down somewhere within a swarm hive. So you guys can open up the next spoiler image and take a look at your accommodations within the hive.
Honestly, this would, if you had a reasonable cleaning fee, this picture would trend pretty high on Airbnb, I feel like. You know what I mean? You could rent out these as fully organic gestation pods for rent.
Yeah,
right?
It's like an industrial area. It looks like a factory or something. Like everything's metal, but then like these just 2 big flush sacks on the ground that are kind of round. They look luminescent from the inside.
They are, yeah.
It's what I imagine, the Scandinavian shark that they bury and let fester before they unbury it and eat it again. I imagine this is what that shark looks like whenever they pull it out.
Oh yeah, that shit.
There's a construction guy's hat right next to one of them. It looks like he lost his hat on the way into the...
Yeah, they're in some factory setting, right?
It's a mine.
They got the classic black and yellow,
yeah.
That means don't go over this, essentially. They got a danger sign up.
I know they have like a wet floor sign in front of the gestation pod as well, basically that red thing. But yeah, it's a mine. It was a locust mass burial site that they dumped a bunch of stuff into, so it became a hive. And when people get snatched up, they just get brought back there because it's all like linked together through like a network of tentacles, which is how the hive mind kind of transmits. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned how this could be an Airbnb.
It's fiber optic, but the fiber is like the fiber like that you eat, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's a testicle price. Yeah. Wheat fiber optic.
So yeah, it's got all the modern amenities you might expect. It's got free meals in the form of a pinkish sludge that is just forced into your body so that you can be digested from the inside out. Free connection to the hive neural network.
Okay.
I guarantee it. Yeah, I mean, your gestation pod is always ice cold in the middle after you take it out, right? It's full of fluid, still frozen in the center. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, through the connection, you can kind of feel and see everyone else who's also gestating in a pod. Like when you rescue Marcus from a pod before he is converted, basically, he's just like, "Oh no, I knew people were getting digested. Like I could feel them being digested through the network and all that shit." Because basically what happens within the pod is you are melted down and remade into a soldier for the swarm. The liquefaction of the original body is, I think, how butterflies actually work. Like a caterpillar like cocoons itself, melts, and then comes out as a butterfly. I think that happens within the pupa. But the same thing...
That sounds crazy. It sounds way easier to just grow wings in there.
Yeah. As a man with no chrysalis and no wings, I'm not sure.
What are you doing?
I mean, pull up the clip. I think that's true. I think beetles do it as well.
I don't even not believe you. Bugs are weird, man. I don't even not believe you. I'm just saying that seems like you added a step. The dissolving step feels extraneous. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and like, why do you got to spend all this time as like a little worm first? I guess you got to build up your energy so you can dissolve yourself. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, obviously Robert Munch or whoever wrote it left out the part where the hungry little caterpillar is liquefied in its pupa before it comes out as a butterfly.
The horror of the acids, the vinegar that overcame me.
Last summer, there was, or maybe it was the summer before, in Montreal, Quebec, or in a lot of places in Quebec, there was a worm, caterpillar infestation, and it turned into a certain type of moth. And if you're in the forest, there were so many caterpillars eating the branches and like eating the leaves and stuff. You could like hear this dull like crunching sound.
Crunch.
But like it's like if like a whole stadium of people just rubbed the palms of their hands, like it just built up to this bigger sound than it actually was.
Like 10-hour ASMR video, just like some Twitch thought lying in the woods listening to caterpillars eat all the trees.
It's a caterpillar with long nails eating a pickle.
That would be that. If we're gonna pick the weirdest art idea for the episode, that's got to be it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Long-nailed caterpillar eating a pickle, because caterpillars kind of look like pickles, right? Like,
oh, it's true.
I don't know. I don't know if Pete's art style will adequately show the difference between a caterpillar and a pickle.
Well,
that
we kind of look like gingerbread men, I guess. But
if you think about it, gingerbread.
That's true. Yeah, I wonder where they got the idea.
Gingerbread boys.
Carl Sagan loved gingerbread.
Yeah,
he also invented that.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Carl Sagan, and his gingerbread recipe. Look it up. So if you aren't rescued in time, but someone wakes you up a little bit too early, and you're not just a pile of goo, you come out as a juvenile, or what is, again, casually called a juvie, basically. They're kind of small, skinny little monkey creatures. They run around on all fours, but like they're human-shaped, so they kind of have that weird like sideways gallop. Like, imagine yourself running around on all fours. It's like that.
Yeah.
They attack with their fists and with their claws. They're just they attack in numbers, but they're incredibly easy to kill. They're not strong whatsoever. Their skin hasn't hardened, so they can't really take much of a bullet like the Locust or a mature swarm monster can. They can't use guns. They can't seem to communicate with each other at all, and they have no sense of self-preservation. Generally speaking, they don't take cover. They just run directly at you, and in some cases, as the more mature swarm drones are hatching, they sometimes just strap doofies with grenades. So they're the very fun and never terrible suicide enemy of the game, which has always been my least favorite enemy in every single fucking game, is the thing that just beelines towards your screen and kills itself in front of you.
It was, and we talked about this series earlier, it was great when the grunts did it in Halo. Because they were just screaming like they were scared, and they'd run in like random directions sometimes.
Yeah.
And just with like 2 plasma grenades like glowing in their hands as they just like run at you. And if you have the appropriate skull, when you shoot them in the head as they're running towards you, confetti pops out. Like there's
the birthday party.
Yeah.
And you get the generic children. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When you get them, yeah. That was always fun. I know Jamie was mentioning, I don't know if this is on the bonus or on this one, but like Jamie, like that 6 SWAT play where he gets like 4 headshots, the children's yay, if you got enough in a row, they would just like cut each other off and like stack constantly. It was like a YouTube poop, basically. So, if the pod is given enough time to finish, a new man-sized swarm soldier will come out. These are called imagos or imagos. This is also the term used for the final stage of a metamorphosizing insect. So a butterfly or a beetle is also an imago. An imago looks a lot like a locust drone. However, when they're fresh, their skin has yet to harden, kind of like a bug does when it has its shell. So you guys can open up the spoiler image and see a newborn swarm drone, a hardened one where he's had enough time to tan, and then a locust drone with the emulsion crystals poking at him as well.
Cool.
Yeah. What is the tool that the one with the crystals poking out of him has in his hands? Because it looks like a gun, but it's painted yellow, which signals tool, not gun.
Yeah.
And then it's got like looks like a projectile or something on the end that has a drill on it, and you would think it's like, oh, it's going to shoot at you and it's going to hit you with the drill, and the drill's going to drill into you, but the drill is pointing down,
90 degrees down. Yeah,
pointing perpendicular to like the trajectory.
It's kind of like a Dead Space style industrial tool converted into a weapon. It's called the drop shot. Unlike in Dead Space, I don't think it has any practical use whatsoever.
No, it's
because it shoots that fucking drill out, and when you release the trigger, it just drops into the ground and explodes.
If you ever needed
it's like the least accurate way to like blast a mountainside, basically.
If you ever needed to like, there's like let's say something you can only fit your arm into, and there's a screw down at the end of that shaft or something.
Oh, like a drill.
Yeah. So you just stick it in, so you can get that screw, so you don't have to like twist your arm in a weird way or use an Allen wrench or
yeah. It's cool. Like in a game that's like heavily based around cover, being able to shoot an explosive drill over cover and drop it directly onto an enemy is a cool idea. I am fucking terrible with it. I gotta say, in my old age, the drill goes way too fucking fast. I can never drop it on anything I'm trying to hit.
Old man Peter on his rocking chair on the porch, just trying to drop a projectile all the time.
Trying to hit birds
with his reaction
with the drill.
So what these guys look like? I mean, they got no lips. That's the first thing I noticed.
Yeah.
They've got 2 noses, but like not noses. Sorry, they got like 2 sets of nostril. One where you'd expect a nose to be, and the other one dead center of the forehead.
Mm-hmm.
The juvenile, the young one, or these aren't juveniles, but like the young one that
he's fresh.
The fresh one looks like uncooked chicken. The center one looks like cooked chicken, and he's got like an ammo like mayoral sash essentially. What do you call them? A
bandolier.
Antonio Banderas.
His teeth also only get yellow in the middle shot, which is weird. Yeah.
Well, it's part of it's the chicken broth that dripped off his skin onto his teeth. It stained his teeth yellow, I think.
You need the locust drones. They hatch out of the pods and immediately into like the rotisserie chicken machine with like the multiple rotating bars around it. And the guy in the middle here is done.
If we go back to the last picture, the big bags of flesh. If you skewered those and stood them upright, they'd look a lot like a kebab shop. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It would look a lot like a Donair store. Yeah. So maybe these guys are just the shavings off that, right?
Wow. My friend he like comes up to you, he's like shaving meat off with his he's like trying to shoot a drill at the kebab or like the shawarma meat. No,
just hold on. I'll get it. He's just like shattered drills all over the floor.
Just like complete wreck.
You can get it yourself as the player character. You have to stand at the appropriate distance away and use a melee. So you go up with the chainsaw part of your gun and get to. Your meat off,
you're using the lancer to carve off swarm of meat.
Yeah.
That's a good one too. Actually, goddamn, I got a lot of stupid pictures to think about.
There's
you got a lot of loser titles too. So
there's a word for it though. Like whenever you cut something with a chainsaw, you're not just like cutting it and like there's material, the thickness of the blade that just gets turned into like sawdust or whatever, right? Like while you're making the cut. Yeah. So that wouldn't be a very good way to cut meat because
meat dust would be delicious meat. Like you put that in the sandwich.
Oh, so right? You get a lot of fine meat dust along with the thicker cuts that you shave off.
And whether you put it in the sandwich or you use it for something else, it's still usable, right?
Yeah, you can make a meat log at the end of it and cut it into deli meats or something. Yeah.
Or like on top of the fries, you could use it as a seasoning. Like dried shawarma chicken might be actually a pretty good patent pending. Anybody who's listening to this in a shawarma shop right now,
for the Lore Boys, Lore Boys kebab shop coming soon to a city near you.
Yeah, we better hope none of the Lebanese have a chainsaw. They'll be ahead of us on
this. So the swarm along with their rotisserie chicken, they're shawarma soldiers basically. They're the swarm. That would be their restaurant.
The swarm. That would be their. It's right there. It's right there.
The Locust swarm.
Yeah, the Locust swarm. That's going to be the name of our fucking kebab shop. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting it down there now.
I don't think you can put Locust on a restaurant without getting like way too much heat from city health inspectors. You know,
probably yeah. I mean, it's not like they're going to walk in and just be like, "Oh wow, it is filled with giant grasshoppers." Who could have known? It's just the name on the side.
Yeah, it's a vibe. We're going for a vibe with our restaurant, okay?
Yeah.
There's a bar next door.
Desiccated crops.
The bar next door called the Rusty Lung.
It's like you've got like a vase with like the fake plants in it. In there, it's just a bunch of like completely dried out dead corn. Just like we're going for a real Moses vibe.
Can you guys name all the bars in Skyrim? What's the one in Whiterun?
There's the single one of them. The Bannered Mare.
Yeah,
one in Whiterun.
Bannered Mare.
The Skevens. What are the rats?
Oh, Skeever.
Skeevers. Yeah.
There's the winking Skeever in Solitude.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's the one I was.
That one makes me think of a butthole.
That's it. Okay, can you name them all?
No. I was thinking because I was playing the other day and I was like, oh, I forgot these all have interesting names, and I'm like, that'd be a good question to ask the boys. How many they remember? And,
James. You're going for the 100%. One of the achievements is to name all the taverns in Skyrim on a podcast. So
the Bee and the Barb. Bee and the Barb.
The mead one.
That's in Riften.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll get any more.
I'll leave you with this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, the swarm has multiple, along with their converted humans. They have multiple other non-converted forces as well. They have carriers, which I don't have a picture of, but they look like a swarm drone, but it kind of walks around like a gorilla, and its chest kind of splits open, and it can shoot out these like explosive little poisonous squids, basically.
Cool.
And then there's also these flocks of flying leeches that I don't really know how they work. So they
swarms of flying leeches, if you will.
It's fun to say though. Flocks of flying leeches.
They call the flock of leeches is it's a band from the 70s. They seem to be able to control machinery, but whether or not they are actually somehow overriding the electronics of a DB, or just like because they don't have bones, wriggling into the workings and controlling them, you do end up fighting like infected DBs that are called rejects, basically, where they're not quite a suicide enemy, but if you shoot their head off, they will go into like self-destruct mode and just run directly at you and explode. So
cool.
They take over machinery. Sorry?
Like the robots in Fallout, but that's if you shoot both their arms off, then they try and blow up on you.
The leeches can even take over other life. In Gears 5, they take over a giant desert worm called the Kraken. And it somehow connects to...
Kraken, not Kraken?
It's sorry, that's my bad. Yeah, it's Kraken.
Okay. I was trying to figure out if it was like spelled an interesting way or something.
I've heard them both though. I've heard them both ways.
It's probably right. I feel like the zeitgeist for Kraken comes from
Liam Neeson.
Release the Kraken, exactly.
Yeah.
I looked at the rest of the inns just to follow up, and the rest of them don't have that cool of name. There's like Dead Man's Drink in Falkreath, the Retching Netch in Solstheim, and then all the other ones are just boring, like Moorside Inn, Nightingale Inn, Wind Peak Inn.
The bar in Winterhold.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the one in Winterhold is the Frozen Hearth. That one's kind of okay, but
that's pretty good. Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, the leeches managed to take over the Kraken or the Kraken again. Now I forgot how I supposed to say it.
the Phil McCraken.
They take it over and somehow manage to connect it to the hive. So now it can be controlled. It's part of the hive mind now. They use it to attack New Ephira. It's like the final boss of Gears 5 is this gigantic desert worm, basically.
Cool.
New Ephira, which was built near the edge of Jacinto Plateau, and Old Ephira is now the latest in the COG's multiple completely obliterated capital cities. So they just don't know what to do with them. They just can't keep them intact. So prior to all this, prior to the
it's like fascists don't know how to run a government, man.
It seems like they're bad at it. Yeah. All the curfew in the world, and they just can't can't seem to keep it together.
I don't understand. We implemented a curfew. Why are people out past 10? Blowing up our cities.
Well, if you have
in the robots,
if you have one of those mutated monsters, you're allowed to walk them past 10. So
it has to be within a kilometer of your home, though. But nobody's going to ask to check where your home is. So.
Yeah, and it's not like your dog can confirm it either.
Nobody's doing the fucking trigonometry to figure out how far you actually are on a map from your home.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, the Quebec government just sent us like a 1 kilometer string that you can just like, you have to tie it like Theseus, basically. You've just got the yarn tied to your front door.
You're going around the block. You're like trying to throw it over like that whole row of houses on the street so you can continue walking around the block.
So prior to all the swarm animals coming back and the creation of the drones, the swarm raised Fort Umsen, which was the outsider settlement where the player characters JD and Kate have been living with Kate's family. Her mother, Reyna, is abducted by a snatcher during the raid, and when Marcus is rescued, he reveals that everyone from the settlement has already been converted and digested, except her mother, except Reyna, who is being treated differently, but at the time he does not know why.
She's going to be the queen.
What we find out is Reyna is the natural-born daughter of Queen Myrrah, and since Myrrah, since Myrrah is dead and her remaining consciousness was like barely keeping the swarm together, she just sends snatchers to go grab her daughter and connect her to the hive network. Because she's only got a couple, she's got just a couple of spoons left in her head. She's going a little crazy. She's barely holding it together with all these different drones. She's like, no, my daughter, Princess Reyna, now Queen Reyna, needs to take over. She needs to inherit this. I'm retiring basically because I've been dead for 25 years.
You see all the flesh monsters that the light touches. These will be yours someday.
Exactly. And at the end of Gears 4, Reyna is discovered and disconnected from the network. However, since she was integrated in and like fused in with a bunch of tentacles, it's very gross. For like what is supposed to be a touching moment, the Kate talking to her mom, who is like semi-digested into a wall of tentacles, doesn't really land, but it's cool, I guess. Yeah. She's discovered and disconnected, and it kills her, which she does specifically ask for because she is not thrilled with being queen of the swarm. So when she gets disconnected, she's like, "Okay, thank you." And Kate disconnects her with a knife. Like it's like a moment between her and her mom. For some reason, they don't actually like take Reyna's body anywhere for like a funeral or cremate her or something like that. Seemingly she's just left behind because
throw her up. Where's the nearest mine shaft?
Yeah, exactly.
Throw her down there. It'll be fine.
Yeah, people write their
just won't come back to bite us.
They write their last wishes. Being left, your whole body being buried, decomposed. People don't quite like that. Being burned, like cremated. People don't like that. No, I want to be dissolved. I want to be dissolved in a cocoon. So just throw me down in a mine shaft. That's
I want to pupate. I want to pupate. That's my last will and testament.
Yeah, totally.
Pupate, would you?
Yeah.
So, because they didn't do anything with her body, I guess the swarm managed to recover it, revive and mutate her, and since her consciousness still was like somewhere on the swarm network, kind of like Myrrah's was, she's just fucking back. And for whatever reason, like Reyna does not kind of like take the like whole Queen of the Swarm thing well. Myrrah was human and looked human right up until she gets killed at the end of Gears 3 by Marcus Phoenix. If you guys want to open the last spoiler picture, you'll see that Reyna did not get the same treatment. She looks like Pirates of the Caribbean 2. She looks like the crew of Davy Jones's ship. She does. Yeah,
she's beautiful.
Yeah, she kind of comes back as a combination of her, a bunch of lobster shells, and Ursula from The Little Mermaid. She doesn't have legs. She's got like tentacles now. She's got emulsion crystals poking out of her head.
Big lobster girlfriend.
Yes.
It looks like she's balding in the middle. I don't know if it's just the side shot, but it looks like she only has hair on the sides. But
no, it's not the lighting. It's not the wig from Tim Robinson. It's
I think the giant crystal sticking out of her forehead has done something to her hairline.
It's changed the way she parts her hair as the emulsion crystal. Yeah.
It's a part, because she used to part on the left, but now she has the crystal there, so she's trying to part on the right. She's very self-conscious about it, James.
Yeah,
I gotta bring it up.
I feel like
she's trying to do bangs but can't cut through the crystals because they're indestructible.
Ethan, I feel like your cat knows where the camera ends because he keeps just choosing new spots to sit that are like within shot.
Oh, I don't know if you guys can see, but we have the Christmas tree up.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, he's going a little berserk for that. So yeah,
likes
it's right off the edge of the camera.
I was thinking about getting one, but I haven't yet since I got Dusty. So 2 years now, no Christmas tree, because I'm like, she's a climber and she has knocked a lamp over onto me in my sleep. I don't want to get hit in the face with the Christmas tree. If I leave it in there, right?
Oh, he heard me. He's coming over.
Oh my god, he's right behind me.
I like sleeping under the tree. She felt like it was like a cozy little.
She's a
area.
present.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So Reyna is eventually defeated and retreats at the end of Gears 5. She actually brings the Kraken to New Ephyra to attack it, but it is killed by the Hammer of Dawn because...
You mean, is that the same as the Kraken, or...?
Yeah, it's a different guy, actually.
Okay.
Just different mustache. and one of the things I was thinking about today was just like, man, the plot of every Gears of War game is just people kind of fucking around until they just get to use the Hammer of Dawn. It really is just the plot. The space laser is just like, yeah, well, we would have used it sooner, but... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the Kraken is killed at New Ephyra by the Hammer of Dawn, and Reyna retreats. She tried to convince... they really should have sent someone else because Kate, when she encounters her mother, who is now not dead and a tentacle monster, and she's just like, "Join me, daughter. We'll live. We'll be immortal. It'll be perfect." Bad pitch. You know, when you look, when you come back as a monster, and you're just like, "Don't you want to be like me, your mom, Princess of the Swarm?" Kate is very strongly, "No, I don't." At all.
Nah, dead.
Well, like, why does it take so long for them to use the Hammer of Dawn? Is it like
they're in orbit?
They're
in orbit, so they're not stationary.
Oh, and plus everybody has to apply to use it. You have to get a permit.
Well,
then you have to get the permit.
Because like we could, in theory, use the James Webb Space Telescope. Like anybody can. You have to submit like a research proposal, and it has to be approved by NASA, basically. And they'll be like, you have to submit like a proposal on like, what experiment are you going to run? Like, where do you need to look? Why? Like, what's the benefit to mankind? Like, all that kind of stuff.
And then we'll get 3 hours 2 years from now to get to use it.
Exactly, yeah. Because the queue is huge. So, like, if there's a global war going on and there's one unified front fighting against it, and there's only one fucking James Webb space laser then...
Infrared laser,
There's got to be a waiting list to use it.
But it's just because they're in orbit, they had to wait for them to be above New Ephyra so that they could target the swarm, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's we shit a lot from our our armchairs back at the Lore Boys HQ. We do a lot of like, oh well, why do video game writers always do this or use that? Like, it must be hard to like, because there's two sides, or the two sides that we talk about the most on this show of game development, which is like design, like game design, and then story. It's like, it must be hard to be a writer, and like you are kind of responding to game design probably more than vice versa, depending on the game, right? There are like story driven games, but Gears of War definitely is a game driven story. And it's like, you as the writer have to come up in fiction why your character, who's like clearly pivotal to the war effort and the most important person involved, doesn't just have access to the end game weapon, because that's not how video games work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And like if you're on game 5, then it's like, man, how do we explain this again? Like, let's just keep going back to the old one. Like, fucking satellite's not here. I don't know what to tell you. You know?
Basically, yeah. That's how Gears of War 2 ends. There's like the Lambent Brumac, and they're just like, how do we sink Jacinto? It's like the Lambent explode, so we need to wait until the Hammer of Dawn is above the dinosaur so that we can fucking hit him. Right? So we can tag him. Yeah. So the COG continues to search for a way to kill the swarm once and for all. One method is set up in Hive Busters, the fantastic Gears 5 DLC. They already kind of have a weapon that targets swarm DNA. They're doing this again.
Is that the real name?
Weapon? What?
Hive Busters?
Hive Buster?
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were making a joke.
Is the full name of the DLC.
Oh my gosh.
It's an arcade.
Oh, frick. I got kicked out of Dave & Buster's for showing my cock. I always see fucking weird reels about that.
It
is an arcade, right?
Hive Buster.
I think it is, yeah. I think it's like a slightly older Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay. Yeah, it's an arcade / restaurant. Like it's like an Applebee's with an arcade attached. I think it's
You get your basket of fries and your whatever the whack-a-mole thing.
Yeah.
So they're already designing a new like genetic weapon against the Hive. And it kind of works, but it isn't potent enough to kill the larger enemies. So what they do is they end up combining the genetic weapon with venom from this gigantic like hummingbird in the Southern Islands. So this is another thing, a writing thing that they did in Gears that Ethan would like, is not only is it not 5,000 years after Gears 3, where nothing has changed, but also Sarah has multiple biomes. So in Gears 5, there's like the European climate of the cities, there's desert, there's ice, and then you go to the Southern Islands, which are basically like, it's like the Maori area, basically. It's like the Polynesian Islands.
Yeah.
The Gears characters, there's always been several of them that are like Maori-based. Ty in Gears 2 has like the tattoos, and one of the 3 squad mates in Hive Busters also has the tattoos on her arm and on her face. So she's from the Southern Islands.
There's just giant hummingbirds drinking from hummingbird feeders full of DEET. And then that goes in, and then we harvest the DEET, and we bring it for the Hive Busters, right? Yeah. It all makes sense.
You don't actually kill it because like they all get killed by the swarm, but like the Maori people on the Southern Islands actually like worshipped this thing. And it is really cool. And I don't know what it's called, but there is actually like a single species of poisonous bird. And I think it lives in New Zealand. And the one that you fight here is really cool because it like hovers. It does have 4 like hummingbird wings, and it makes a really cool like kind of helicopter noise when you're fighting it in the boss battle.
I was wondering what the sound would be like. I thought it would be more flappy. Since they're so big, they wouldn't go as fast, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, square cube. Animal like that probably guaranteed could not actually exist because you'd never be able to like have muscles in a bird that big that can beat wings that fast.
Yeah.
But it is very cool. It's like a bug, and then it's because you see it attacking the swarm earlier in the game. And like the entire DLC is set up as like tracking this thing down so you can take its venom, because the venom is clearly very effective. Right. And then it is combined and modified with the actual like DNA weapon that they're trying to use. Then the fucking end of the DLC is a cliffhanger where the 3 members of the squad like strap themselves with the new toxin bomb and then bait snatchers to drag them into the hive. So it ends with the 3 of them like in a clearing. The guy I played as is like the Scottish guy because he's got a deployable shield, and he's just like sitting there in front of a snatcher, like flips up 2 birds behind him, which is like so cheesy and badass. They all get scooped up and brought into the hive that's like in a volcano underneath like the Polynesian Islands.
All right, I can dig it.
So that's it. That is everything current for Gears of War. So now we need to wait for Gears 6, which, like I said earlier, without Rod Ferguson, I hope they stick the landing because I fucking love 4 and 5. Under his direction, but hopefully he left them with good notes, and hopefully they can stick the landing on this one, because so far the Coalition has been doing great work. And I have been your host, Peter O'Donohue. You can find me at Lore Boys Podcast on Instagram, or follow the link to the Discord below. And
Peter, you wanted to buy a coat today, and it's past 5 p.m. on a Sunday.
5:10, and you're drunk, dude.
I don't think you're going to be able to buy a coat.
You're too drunk to buy a coat.
Yeah.
I stayed sober during this recording, thinking I would not want to go to the mall day drunk to buy a winter jacket. and here I am, sober as a fucking Mormon at 5'10". Bullshit.
The sun sets at 4:30, and boy, do you have egg on your face, huh?
Yeah, I know. I'm still cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for listening to the show, everybody. Thanks for talking about the show, spreading the word. I got some flack from Dr. Bison on Discord for plugging a certain social media website, which is now dead. So I'll say, write in your Tumblr blogs about the Lore Boys, if you would. I know a lot of you motherfuckers have Tumblr blogs. Maybe they're defunct. Maybe you're not using them anymore. But just revive them just for the the boys, the pale boy dot. If you want to get in touch with us, Discord is probably the best way to do it. There's a link in the description. We also have an email. We should probably do a mailbag soon, right, fellas? We didn't do Extra Life this year.
I mean, tell us when, Ethan, because you're the one who has all the plans and stuff.
It's funny because I did think about it, and I was just like, when can Ethan do a mailbag episode? Because it's always like the full night. It's the celebration. It's like, how long can we leave Ariane alone with the baby?
I'm going to tell you guys right now. The holidays are coming up. I know we have some time off. I think we should consider getting together on that, and maybe you guys can come here. Anyway, if you guys want to get in touch with us, like I said, the Discord's a great way. Or we have the email, contact@loreboys.com or loreboyspodcast@gmail.com. We'll get in touch with us, and we'll read your emails live on air during our mailbag when Pete finally gets drunk. No more coat shopping on that day, okay? Don't plan to buy a coat.
Whoa!
When we're doing our Lore Boys mailbag.
I got 2 weeks of vacation coming up, and my dog sitter just got fired from her real job. So,
oh hell yeah,
she is so available and needs money. So let's go. Money. Perfect timing. Yeah,
beautiful. Beautiful. I wish dog sitters would get fired more often.
Don't like to work, whatever that was.
If you guys want to have your names right at the top of the show, or hear the fun games that we play, like the pocket article title game that you guys heard at the beginning, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/theloreboys, where you can donate. We have a couple different tiers. You can check out the details there. And of course, we do have Lore Boys Prime, where this week's Lore Boys Prime, we are, of course, getting back into biology. Pete says there's one type of poisonous bird. There's actually several, but we're trying to grow that number. Okay, so we're trying to get up there with names like the pitohui and ifrita from Papua New Guinea.
Oh, okay.
We're trying to get up there with the spur-winged goose, hupos, the bronze-winged pigeon, the red warbler, and this is the one that's really important. Apparently, the common quail can be poisonous, depending on what type of plants it's eaten. So we need our listeners. If you want to become a patron member, we need proof that you have fed a certain number of plants to your local birds.
Send us your poisonous quails, guys. That's what we want.
Send us your poisonous quails. Send us your poisonous pigeons. Send us your poisonous turkeys.
You know what? There's been this thing going on like TikTok and Instagram Reels where people go to swamps and they'll pick up large amount of tadpole eggs, bring them home, and nurture them to life to have an army of frogs and let the frogs loose within their neighborhood.
Okay, we want the same thing, just with poisonous birds.
Exactly.
Exactly. So send us your army of poisonous birds to add to our army of poisonous birds, and we'll give you the rank of captain in the Lore Boys army.
Hell yeah!
For when inevitably we fight glowing creatures, lambent creatures from underground.
We are going to fight our own fascist government with an army of poisonous birds. That's the plan. And tell me to go to bed at 8:30, will you?
Best part is too, like all the wackos out there lately think birds aren't real, so we're gonna get those QAnon fucks at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The true enemy.
Yeah.
And I think that would cost you a Lore Boys.
Lore Boys.
Out.
Let's go, boys.
Every new place you go with physical media just has Bat Out of Hell for some reason.
Yeah.
Everybody was okay with that.
You'd order a pizza, they'd hide it under the pie,
Yeah. Just try to get rid of them. It's like copies of Fallout 76.